All right, the 1 to 4 family, paragraph 18. So we're going to go through 18A and B, escrow and expenses. So this is all talking about the escrow company, the title company is what this is talking about. The escrow, and a couple of things. The escrow agent here in paragraph A is not a party to the contract, so there's no liability for performance or non-performance. Okay. They're also not liable for interest on the earnest money. So if you give them $20,000 in earnest money and it closes 60 days later and the title company made interest on that, the title company will keep that interest, right? They're not liable for returning that. And their next one is they're not liable for loss of the earnest money caused by failure of a financial institution. So if the bank goes under and the money's lost, title company is not responsible for that. Okay, so that means the person who deposited the earnest money would have to go after the bank and seek relief from them. Now, here's something that comes up from time to time, right? The escrow agent may require any disbursement made in connection with this contract to be conditioned on escrow agent's collection of good funds acceptable to escrow agent. This is why typically title companies will not accept personal checks, because if they accept a personal check or even a cashier's check now, because there's fraudulent cashier's checks, they will not release any of those funds until those checks have cleared. That can take 7 to 10 days sometimes. So when your client is giving money to the title company, make sure it's good funds, which is going to be typically a wire from your bank. If it's a cashier's check, you need to ask the title company, can we give a cashier's check as good funds? They may have limits on that. They might take cashier's checks up to $10,000 as good funds, and anything over that has to wait. Because what will happen is if you give a personal check, let's say for $10,000 for earnest money and option money, and then you terminate on day 3, that check still hasn't cleared. So that buyer's not going to get that earnest money back when they terminate, even if both parties release it. It won't be released till that check clears all the banks. That could take, again, 10 days or so, right? Now, the second part here, paragraph B, these are expenses, okay? From the title company's perspective, the earnest money must be applied first to any cash down payment, then to buyer's expenses, and the excess refunded to the buyer. So remember, that earnest money belongs to the buyer. It's first going to go to down payment, then any expenses that they have. Then the buyer will bring whatever is left over to the table that they need in order to close. So they will get credited for that closing. If the earnest money is more than what the buyer needs to bring to the table, then the buyer will be refunded that earnest money at closing. You may see this in VA loans with 0 down, and we've asked for seller concessions from the seller. Okay. Now, here it gets a little interesting, because if no closing occurs, the escrow agent will require a written release of liability of the escrow agent from all parties before releasing the earnest money. That is that release of earnest money that we talked about in another video. And 2, they could require payment of unpaid expenses incurred on behalf of a party. What this means, and this typically happens, is one of the parties will order a survey. Maybe that survey is $600, and they ask the title company to order that survey. There's a bill at the title company for that survey. If the contract doesn't close, then the contract is stating that the title company can take that $600 out of the earnest money before they refund it to the party that it's going to. That's what it states here. So just keep that in mind. If you have the title company order anything, HOA documents, anything like that, there's a bill at the title company that has to be paid. And before they release that earnest money, they're going to want to be made whole. Okay. Make sure your people understand that. Yeah. And that does happen from time to time, again, with surveys, HOA documents, property owner documents, and other things. Okay.